Christianity versus homosexuality. Now I know that touching on this subject I'm going to immediately draw in all the haters with their silly comments below, but you know, it's my opinion, so I'll say it anyway. I've been put down by worse people, so I shan't worry about it. Many people are surprised to learn that homosexuality was accepted as just another part of the human condition until the beginning of the 12th century. If we look at how homosexuality has fitted in with history, we can find from historical writings, prose, poetry and art that the ancient Greek society had social acceptance of gays. They didn't label people to fit into a certain group, and it seems most men were happy to go with either men or women. For hundreds of years, Roman emperors embraced their bisexuality, and even Alexander had his gay lover by his side, as seen in a recent movie starring Colin Farrell. For over 400 years, China was ruled by 19 different emperors who were either openly homosexual or bisexual. In Japan, samurai life was enriched by the emotional and sexual bond cultivated between an older warrior and a younger apprentice. The Japanese believed that if the lovers went into battle together, they would fight all the harder to protect their loved one. The samurai called it Baido, meaning beautiful way. In 1482, Ijiri Chusuke wrote, in our Empire of Japan, this way flourished from the time of the great Master Kobo. In the abbeys of Kyoto and Kamakura, and in the world of the nobles and the warriors, lovers would swear perfect and eternal love, relying on no more than their mutual goodwill. Whether their partners were noble or common, rich or poor, was absolutely of no importance. In all these cases, they were greatly moved by the spirit of this way. This way must be truly respected, and it must never be permitted to disappear. In Europe, homosexuality was widely accepted up to the 12th century. Throughout the Middle Ages, most monasteries had many priests and abbots who wrote literature and poetry celebrating their gay lovers. Various Native American tribespeople not only accepted homosexuals without question, but actually held them in high regard. They were not expected to fight alongside the other warriors, and braves could go to them for sexual relief. The wives did not see them as a threat, because after all they couldn't produce children, which was the main purpose of marriage. Many Native Americans believed that their gay kinsmen were a special gift to the tribe from God, and that they were spiritually gifted. Many gay tribesmen became spiritual advisors and tribal elders. So, after thousands of years of acceptance, how did homosexuals become so reviled and persecuted? It started in the 12th century when the organised church and state became odd bedfellows, if you'll excuse the pun. Various governments looked to its respected church leaders to help them create order and uniformity. With its newfound power, the church began to legislate standards of morality. In thinking of the high moral ground, they turned to people's bedroom activities and decided to repress the minorities. Europe's Jewish and Muslim population started to be persecuted, and the Crusades set about ridding the Holy Land of the Muslims. They believed that the Muslim religion allowed any kind of sexual act, so as well as many prostitutes, they noticed that the Muslims, or Saracens as they were known then, had a great number of effeminate men who were not against exposing and degrading their own bodies with other men. Islam, hell-bent on proving that the Christians were wrong, had a massive crackdown on homosexuals. Europe, in its quest to be seen as civilised, looked to the church for propaganda to incite hatred against the minorities, including homosexuals. One particular piece of vile rhetoric bandied about was that all minorities were guilty of killing Christian children. Where they get that from, I don't know. The intolerance grew, and from the witch hunts of France to the Spanish Inquisition, anyone who had a finger pointed at them was put to death. Church leaders who were looking to the Bible to find just cause to persecute gays found very little, but the one passage that is most often used is that of Paul's letter to the Romans. It reads, "Even their women did change the natural use into that which is against nature, and likewise also the men, leaving the natural use of the woman, burned in their lust for one another." Recent analysis infers that Paul may be criticising heterosexuals who dabble in homosexual acts. The text seems to imply that it's wrong for heterosexuals to indulge in homosexual acts because such activities would require them to change their natural use to that which is against their nature. This would seem not to apply to homosexuals, since they find homosexuality normal, or in Paul's words, agreeable to the world of nature. By the end of the 18th century, there was a period known as the Enlightenment, or the Age of Reason. Free thinkers and intellectuals in Europe, tired of the repression existent in their society, started the new movement with the idea that the tradition, irrationality, superstition and tyranny that had been spread about since the Middle Ages should be abolished. They convinced the state to separate from the church, but the church didn't like the idea that it was losing its power, so it lobbied successive governments that the church alone was the sacred keeper of ethics and morals, and it alone should be listened to when setting moral standards. Of course, one of the moral legislations that they insisted on being included was a ban on homosexual sex, even though when it was initially applied as part of the Inquisition, it didn't actually mention gay sex, but was directed to any non-procreative activity. And so it stands. Homophobia has ever since been spread by ignorance, illiteracy and misunderstanding. In order to move forward, more and more Christians are choosing to believe that the Bible, rather than a set of debatable instructions, is a guidebook, a book that tells you to live a good life, be honest, be good to your neighbours, and most of all to treat people the way you would like to be treated.